Jayden Quaintance is still not practicing with the Kentucky Wildcats, and I know a lot of you want to panic, but there's really no reason to.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, Jayden Quaintance is still not practicing with UK. Is there any reason for concern? I say no. Going to give you a few reasons why. Also on today's episode, AP poll voting. I don't know if you've heard anything online about the AP poll over the last couple of days, but fans are not too happy about the poll as a whole, and specifically one voter who seems to kind of encapsulate all that is wrong with the poll as it currently stands. Is there any sort of weight that the poll holds? Does it actually matter at all? We'll dive into that on today's show. And then to wrap everything up, there's a name you need to know. He visited Kentucky over the weekend. He's a 2028 five-star, but he is a guy that you need to have on your radar. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is here. You can visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. I want to remind you that we are free and available on all platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show, and if you're listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. Trying to get to 20,000 subscribers before the start of the college basketball season. It's going to be tough. I think we can get really close, if not there, so I would love it if you guys subscribed. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Jayden Quaintance is still not practicing. Everybody freak out. You know that meme of SpongeBob running around in his head and everything's on fire and he's freaking out, losing his mind? That's what BBN was for about an hour on Twitter yesterday when the news came out. According to John Rothstein, he got it from the headman himself, Mark Pope. Jayden Quaintance is still not participating in non-contact practice stuff. He's only doing off-the-court things right now, trying to get ready, trying to get healthy for the season. He's not practicing with the team. As big as JQ is for what Kentucky wants to be this season, which is, I think, improved defensively significantly, I might add, and more physical and more athletic. If that's what Kentucky wants to be, they need a player like Jayden Quaintance out there. I have not shied away from just how impactful JQ can be for this team. And I guarantee you, I'm going to go ahead and call my shot. I've already done it a couple different times on the show. Let's reiterate it here. Jayden Quaintance is not going to play as much as you want him to, or as much as I want him to. And we're going to have to accept that, because what Kentucky has at center is depth, like really, really high quality depth. You have to accept now that as impactful as JQ is going to be, Kentucky's going to rotate probably three guys there, especially if Moreno takes hold, as we assume he will at the beginning of the season if Jayden Quaintance is not going to play. But JQ's not going to play as much as we want him to, and I'm going to go ahead and also predict this. The advanced analytics are going to tell you every time he's out there on the court, Kentucky is an objectively better team, and it's going to make a lot of people upset, and we're just going to have to roll with it. Mark Pope likes to play a lot of different rotations. We're just going to have to accept that he's going to do what he does with this rotation and this starting five, I might add. But there's no reason to panic. There's no reason to be, freaked out over the fact that, hey, Jayden Quaintance is only 6 months out from an ACL surgery and he's not practicing with the team. I think the timeline right now makes sense. I've continued to tell you guys on this show, there's no insider information that I've got, but just based on watching him dunking in slides, the exercise videos that have come out, he looks good enough to, within the next month or so, really start to ramp things up where he could go 100%. I think he's going to play earlier than people anticipate him doing so. There are a lot of people online saying, well, if we could just get him back for SEC play, if we could just get him back for January, that would be incredible. No, I really do believe, based on watching him, that he will be ready to go a lot sooner than we think. So that's one reason why you shouldn't worry. He's going to be back, and I think he's going to be back soon. I know a lot of Kentucky fans are kind of snake bit, as is the team, when it comes to injuries. They are really fearful of what is going to happen because of what has happened in the past for this squad. Just injury after injury after injury, really, really bad luck whenever kids are supposedly healthy or healthy enough to play. They don't. Whenever they are supposedly in 100%, turns out Kentucky's setting them on the bench for goodness knows what reason, if they're actually hurt, if it's not. We've had a lot of confusion, frustration in the last decade or so when it comes to Kentucky's health and keeping kids on the court. Because of that, I think a lot of people are really kind of gun shy to say anything about JQ here. I'm just going to tell you, I think he's back soon. I really do. And then on top of that, what I said a minute ago is true. Whether we like it or not, Kentucky's got a lot of options at center that they're going to trot out there, most notably Brandon Garrison and five-star freshman Malachi Moreno. Maybe it needs to be talked about a little bit more, just how high of a floor I think Malachi Moreno has as a player. There's been some conversation online based on what's coming out of practice, like, oh, maybe he's not in Lexington as long as we think he's going to be. Maybe he's more impactful than we expect him to be. I'll go ahead and tell you this. He's going to be on the floor at the beginning of the year. He's probably going to be on the floor still quite a bit during the Louisville game because, first of all, Kentucky likes to rotate their guys. Pope, we know this. Pope wants to do that. And then also, excuse me, I think he really is that high floor of a prospect. He has that high of a floor as a prospect where you can trot him out there for 15 to 20 minutes a game. He can be a plus rebounder. He can be an average to solid defender. He can do a lot of things for you that, frankly, Brandon Garrison was doing for you off the bench last year. Now, he may not be as incredibly athletic. He may not be as explosive or as flashy, but he's going to, I think, be serviceable for the Wildcats as somebody that can play well in the dunker spot, as somebody that can rebound, as someone that can protect the rim. Malachi's going to be able to provide some different things for you. And then there have been mixed reports about how Brandon Garrison has developed this offseason, if he really has at all, if he's going to be essentially the same player. We're going to get the highs and the lows, right? That's just accept that for what it is now. Nobody's going to provide you the value that Amari Williams did a season ago if JQ's not on the floor. Sorry, that's just the reality. Garrison and Moreno as a tandem, though, I think they'll be good enough. You also have Andrea Jelovich, who I think is definitely big enough to play the five. You've also got Reese Potter that you could throw out there off the bench if things do get dire, if there's foul trouble, if there's, knock on wood, another injury. Hopefully there's not. And then there have been reports coming out of practice that Mohamed Diabate has kind of slid in as a small ball five. There's a world where Kentucky puts Diabate there at center, depending on what the other team's lineup is, and they just rock with it. Like, I really do think Kentucky's fine here. They've got enough options, a lot of which have some high upside, and I'm really excited about. There's no reason to really worry or panic because he's going to be back sooner than we think. And also, Kentucky's got 5 different players, 4 actual centers, 5 different players that they could chuck out there at the 5 if they really wanted to. So don't worry about Jaden Quaintance. I think he's coming along just fine. If he's dunking in slides and he's looking good in exercise, I think that he's going to be ready when Kentucky needs him. And I really do believe that that is sooner than a lot of people expect. All right, I want to talk about the AP poll, specifically in college football. It doesn't, I think, impact the game as much in college basketball, but there's a lot of conversation online about should the AP poll exist? Should certain people have a vote? How seriously should it be taken? Does it matter at all? Where does it matter if it does? I'm going to give you my take on it because I think it's a little bit different than everything you're hearing out there. Newsflash, it does and doesn't matter in a variety of areas. I guess it's really up to you to decide whether or not you should care, because I can go ahead and tell you the people in the locker room do not care at all. We'll dive into that in just a second. Before we get to that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for everyone. Whether you're out there on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5 Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. This is not a bit. I'm being honest with you guys. Not going to lie whenever we're talking about sponsors. I have recently started playing golf, and the first time I went to golf, I did not have a 5 Hour Energy shot, and I was drained in the back nine. I rubbed a hole in my thumb raw, even with a glove on. It was not fun. Second time I went golfing, had that 5 Hour Energy shot, incredible. I was as fresh as could be. I was more focused. I was making better contact with the ball. I just felt better. 5 Hour Energy absolutely can help you out there. It's about good times with good people with golf, right? And good flavors. The grape ginger lime flavor of a 5 Hour Energy transfusion brings you the best parts of your clubhouse. Again, without ever leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. FIVEHEWIN.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. The NFL season is here, guys. A lot of you are Bengals fans. Some of you are Bills fans, I've seen in the comments. Titans fans as well. The NFL season's here, though. FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer because right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in the bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel. Love it because it fits however I like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in as the live action unfolds. It's also just an opportunity for me to keep an eye on my fantasy lineup, helps me stay more engaged, and it's really, really fun on Sundays. It's quick, easy, and it's the best way to add a little bit more energy to your weekends. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, continuing along here on the Tuesday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Really appreciate you guys checking out the show today. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would greatly appreciate it. Again, if you did so we talked about how JQ, he's not back yet. There's no reason to freak out. It's okay. It's fine. Let's talk about AP poll voting. By the way, just real quick, I want to say this. We'll have a preview. We'll have a breakdown of Kentucky versus Eastern Michigan later this week. According to reports coming out of practice, Calzada, Boley splitting first-team reps. We're going to see how this unfolds this Saturday. We're going to see if Calzada is actually ready to go. If it were up to me, you know what I would do. But we'll talk more football. For all of you that have been begging for more football, I hope you're happy because we're trying to bring you the content that you guys want and, of course, deserve. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll talk more football later this week because Eastern Michigan, as much as I kind of liked them in the preseason, they don't look very good. And Vegas seems to agree that Kentucky's going to win this game by a lot. We'll break it down on Friday, I believe. So AP poll voting in college football, though. I'm sure you guys have seen the most recent AP poll. A lot of you guys followed college football, despite Kentucky currently not being very good. You like to look at the AP poll. You like to see the news surrounding the sport, and you've probably seen a lot of negative discourse surrounding just the poll and its existence, period. Should it exist? Why is it the way that it is? Why does it have all of these preseason expectations for teams, and then it completely decides to kind of throw things out the window whenever teams win or lose, and they kind of, some voters hold on to the preseason expectations whenever it's irrational. Others completely ditch them whenever a loss occurs. As it stands today, there are a lot of things wrong with the Week 3, technically AP poll. And I won't get into all of them. LSU is the number 3 team in the country. I don't quite understand that, especially now that Clemson has shown themselves to, I don't think, be as good as top 12 in the nation, and yet here they are at 12th after being down 16-0 to Troy at one point in the first half this past weekend. You've also got teams like Tennessee sliding all the way up to number 15. They should have been there to begin the year. I don't understand why they were that low. South Florida, after beating Boise State, beating the brakes off of the Broncos in Week 1, they then turn around and stun Florida in the Swamp. And yet, in this week's AP poll, they are 18th. This is something that Josh Pate said, I believe, on Sunday. I'm going to reiterate it here because he is 1,000% right. If you put crimson and white uniforms on that resume, there is a chance that team, 2-0 with 2 top 25 wins, one of them on the road against Florida, there is a chance that that team would be ranked number 1 in the nation. Definitely top 10. 1,000% top 10. If this was the University of Alabama Crimson Tide and their record was a blowout win over Boise State, a ranked Boise State team, and a win over DJ Lagway and the Florida Gators, top 15 at the time, on the road, that would be enough to be in the top 10 definitively. You cannot name another school that has a better resume currently. And I know some people want to say, well, what about Texas? Or Ohio State beating Texas. Yeah, and then they turned around and played who? Grambling? It offsets. South Florida has the best resume in the country, and yet they are only 18th. How on earth does that make sense? The reason that they are only 18th is because of the biases, the preseason bias that all of these voters have for teams like Clemson, South Carolina, Notre Dame, who, by the way, is 0-1, and they moved up to number 8. Does not make any sense. Georgia, who only scored 28 points against Austin Peay, does not look phenomenal. LSU up to number 3 because they beat, at that time, a top 10 Clemson team on the road, but turns out Clemson's not that good. LSU turned around and beat, who was it? Louisiana Tech? What was the final score of that game? Oh yeah, 23-7. LSU is yet to top 23 points against Clemson, who is not very good, and Louisiana Tech. Are you kidding me? Sonny Cumbie and company were able to hold this thing together against the number 3 team in the nation. They got 2 first-place votes. How does any of this make sense? It does not. Utah should have been higher in the AP poll last week, and yet here they are only at 20th. That's a really good team. I don't think Ole Miss should be ranked this high, and yet they are. Texas A&M has not looked phenomenal, and yet here they are at number 16. Nobody really seems to care about resume. They are more concerned about their preseason bias. By the way, Florida State at number 10. I think that they should have been ranked to start the year because of how they performed. Like you can't have teams like LSU, Notre Dame, Georgia over teams like Florida State. Thank goodness that Florida State's over South Carolina or Clemson, or this would be really dumb. There's so many different things wrong with this poll, though. We could dive into the different nuances of that and the coaches poll and whatnot. But the point being, a lot of people are frustrated. And I understand why. Because the AP poll doesn't really make sense until November, right? Or somewhere around, starting to decide which teams are actually contenders or not, which is why the college football playoff rankings don't come out until November. There's no point really in ranking teams until that time. And I am not one of those people that's going to sit here and tell you, abolish the AP poll. We want to do away with it entirely. We don't think it should exist, period. It's stupid as a whole. I feel like the AP poll should exist. I think it's a fun thing. And I think that it promotes a lot of different positive things about this sport, which we'll get into here in a second. But it doesn't matter because it doesn't affect what actually happens on the field whenever the season has finally started to turn its gears and get underway. It does not directly affect anything that happens on the field. But what it does do is it does affect perception, it affects publicity, and it affects something that we're all very familiar with. And if you watch the Locked On Podcast Network, you know what I'm talking about, narrative. It affects narrative. It indirectly can influence things like recruiting, donations, what boosters do. TV coverage is a big one right now. And the way teams are remembered, it can indirectly affect those. So in a sense, the way that you handle the AP poll should matter to an extent. But at the end of the day, I really do think every other weekend, as a consumer of this sport, it doesn't matter to you. If you are, James from Pikeville, and you see Kentucky ranked 23rd one weekend, and then the other weekend they're ranked 17th. You don't really care. You don't really care. It does not affect what you're doing on Saturday. When it's 3rd and 4, and Ole Miss needs a touchdown to stay in the game late in the fourth quarter, and you have all of this energy surrounding you, Kroger Field's going insane. If you're James from Pikeville, not a single thought in that moment is going towards the AP poll, or man, this game's competitive. I can't believe Ole Miss is ranked this high. Not a single thought. Or man, we're going to win this game. We should be ranked top 15 come Sunday, and that affects me emotionally. That you don't care. Nobody really cares. However, like I mentioned, it does indirectly affect a lot of things that happen within these programs that I think that people with money do kind of care about. I can go ahead and tell you that the coach doesn't care about it. I can go ahead and tell you that the kids sure as crap don't care about it. But there are some people that do care. So to you, it may not matter. To others, it might. But forget all of that. Even if it matters, even if it doesn't, here's the problem with the AP poll. The wrong people are voting on it. The wrong people are voting on it, full stop. Every single person that gets an Associated Press poll vote for either college football, college basketball, or whatever other sport that the AP decides to rank, every single voter covers one school primarily. All of them do. And if there are maybe a couple of exceptions, they still only follow one team primarily. A lot of these people are beat writers. Some of these people I know personally. Some of these people I work with. I know who they are and I know what their job is like. They are not going out of their way on a Saturday to go figure out what on earth, for example, Utah is doing at 10 p.m. on a Friday night against UCLA. They aren't going out of their way to look and see, okay, what is Indiana doing this weekend? How are they looking? Should they be ranked? Should Mississippi State, should Georgia Tech be ranked? No. Unless they cover that team, they're spending the entire weekend with their mind elsewhere. And it was, I think, perfectly encapsulated by, I believe her name is Haley Sawyer, and her AP vote. If I'm not mistaken, she covers USC. I'm not certain on that. I didn't take the time to look up what exactly she does. It's something out west. Point being, she covers one team. And in her AP poll vote, like I mentioned, huge upset, monumental upset. South Florida Bulls 18, Florida 14. And yet, South Florida, or excuse, we'll start here. Florida moved up from 16th in her AP poll ballot to 14th after losing that game. And you may say, okay, well, she has to have like USF inside like the top 10 or at least higher than UF, right? Like that would make sense. Like if she thought, okay, they lost to one of the best teams in the country, let's move them up and move some things around if other teams like right above Florida lost, right? At least you could like sort of follow that logic at least a little bit. Now I think a lot of people would disagree with that, myself included, but at least it makes more sense than having South Florida outside of the top 25 poll entirely. That's right. She moved up the team that lost 2 spots, and still somehow she has USF outside the top 25. Idiocy is probably the best word that I can use without saying anything that's overwhelmingly offensive. I'm sure that she does a phenomenal job covering whoever she covers, and I'm sure that she does a great job with her work, and I'm sure she's a really nice person. In fact, I respect the way that she responded to this question because she wasn't angry, she didn't cuss, she wasn't mean, she was professional. Now, what she said was not, I still think was wrong, and maybe not the smartest thing, but at least she carries herself professionally. I can respect that, and I can appreciate it. She should not have an AP vote. Listen to the quote. When asked about why do you have Florida? By the way, I cannot believe we've gone this long on this. Why do you have Florida 2 spots higher and USF still out? What's going on there? Here's the quote. As far as what my votes are and what my process is, I wake up early in the morning after covering a game late the night before. Don't want to go too much into my process or logic, but I will say I appreciate everybody's social interaction on social media and all of your feedback. You know, there's tons of people that vote on the AP poll, and like it's not a perfect system, but at the end of the day, like no matter who you pick, it does even out because there's so many people who vote. Like I said, it's really fun for discussion. It doesn't, probably matter in the end, but I'm glad that people are having a really good time with it. End quote. The AP poll doesn't affect anything that happens on the field. It can indirectly affect a lot of different things that influence that, but it doesn't really hold that much weight at the end of the day. But let me tell you who it does hold weight to. It holds weight to the Associated Press, or at the very least, it should, right? If you are going to vote on college football's most widely recognized poll, you should watch the games. You shouldn't just watch one. You shouldn't just watch a few on Saturday, some of the big name brands. You should watch the whole sport. I am sick and tired of listening to these national pundits who do not clearly watch what they are paid to cover talk about things so incorrectly. It makes me so angry to see all of these different influencers or pundits on these major networks clearly have no idea what they're talking about. And it's also rooted within this AP poll of individuals who only cover one team, clearly not watching the sport that they are graciously given a poll vote to decide the best 25 teams in the sport. They don't have enough, as dumb as this sounds, they don't have enough ball knowledge to properly speak on who the best 25 teams in America are. I'm not here to police every single nitpick of where you put each team, right? I'm not here to nitpick every single different ballot. I'll tell you this as much. This AP poll, this week's AP poll is ridiculous. It is stupid. But I'm not here to police some Tennessee beat writers or some Michigan beat writers poll and say, well, you have this team 6 spots higher than the average. You're an idiot. Sawyer clearly here is lost in the plot. She clearly has not seen, she clearly didn't watch it. She clearly has not seen what happened over the course of this weekend. She should not have a poll. The people who do not watch this sport should not have a poll, have a vote. And frankly, I think that's a lot of the different people that currently have a vote, because they're all beat writers. They all cover one team. They don't look. There are people within my network, the Locked On Podcast Network, that I know that do cover just one team. And yet they clearly watch way more college football and know way more about the sport than a majority of the people that currently have an Associated Press top 25 vote. I think that there are a lot of people in this network that are more knowledgeable. Frankly, I think there are a lot of people outside of this network that are either independent or work with other different companies that do cover the sport whole hog, and they don't have a vote, and it's ridiculous. If you do care about this, if it does matter to you, the right people should be voting. And they currently aren't. And I think it's ridiculous. Does it matter? Does it not? It's up to you. I think a lot of you don't really care. I think a lot of people in the professional space should. At the end of the day, though, Haley Sawyer should not have a vote. All due respect, I'm sure she's great at her job. There's a lot of people that shouldn't have a vote, and that's evidenced by how the current AP poll is set up, or this week's AP poll. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Let's talk about a 5-star prospect that Kentucky, I think, has a lot of reasons they should be pretty excited about. Talk about something more positive here in just a second. Before we do, though, I'll tell you guys about our friends over at Game Time. College football, as much as I am frustrated with some of the people that cover it, is back. It's here, and I love it. I love the sport. That's why I care so much, right? I couldn't be more excited. It's the tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands. There's just nothing like it, right? Let's be real, though. Actually getting tickets to some of these events can feel like more of a battle than the actual game. It's endless queues, it's hidden fees, it's prices jumping at checkout. It's bull crap you don't want to hear about. That's why I use Game Time. It's the app that actually gives advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score tickets, and not just any tickets, last-minute tickets at the best prices. with no surprise fees because what you see is what you pay. I pulled up the Game Time app. I'm actually going to a game in November. I wanted to go ahead and get it out of the way. In just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games. If you want to go to a Kentucky game, would highly encourage you. Go take a look. You can find tickets as low as $25. The app made it super simple. You can take the guesswork out of buying your college football tickets with Game Time by downloading the Game Time app, creating an account using code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, wrapping up the Tuesday edition of Locked On Kentucky after ranting for far too long about whether or not this person or that person should have an AP vote, whether or not it should exist. It's really up to you whether or not it matters. I think for the average fan, it doesn't. But this egregious ballot from Ms. Sawyer and this week's AP poll have really highlighted a lot of frustrations that people have with it. For me personally, again, like I mentioned, I don't really think it makes sense to rank some teams until later in the year, but I'm okay with people doing it. It's a part of the sport. It's a fun part of the sport. I like it. All right. Kentucky is in, and I mean in, right now, with a 5-star prospect in the 2028 class. And you may say, why are we looking that far ahead? Well, he's the son of a former Kentucky Wildcat. Kam Mercer is a 6'5", 190-pound, 5-star guard that currently plays for Overtime Elite. He's from Cincinnati. He's the son of former Cat Ron Mercer. And he was on a visit over the weekend. He's the number 5 player in the nation according to ESPN, number 14 according to Rivals. The industry ranking averages out to number 10 nationally. Number 1 point guard in the country, number 3 player in the state of Georgia. This kid is a hooper. You need to know his name because, Lord willing, I'll be doing this show 2 years from now, and we'll be talking about how good this kid is and about how Kentucky's going to be right there in the thick of his recruitment. What do we know about him? Well, first and foremost, actually, it's one of 2 notes that I have on this kid in my doc here. This is a legitimate future NBA player. This kid will be playing NBA ball in 3 years. He is that good right now. At 16, 17 years old, this kid is gifted offensively. Really, really good handle for a 6'5" guard. Incredible scoring ability. Can get to the rim, can shoot in the mid-range, can knock it down from beyond the arc. He wants to be more of a point guard, I think, but he's currently, I think, in the way that he operates, a secondary playmaker. Like, that's how I would utilize him. But he still looks really solid with the ball in his hands. Really, really solid with the ball in his hands. He attacks the basket well. He also functions really effectively, like I mentioned, in that secondary playmaker spot. Somebody that's not a true offensive engine right now, but he can create opportunities off the dribble. He's got really solid length. He can disrupt passing lanes. He's a solid defender. He can generate turnovers. He can shoot over just about anybody in isolation or in mid-range. He's still developing, I think, a lot of different aspects of his game. No duh, he's 16. As far as, being that primary option, I think he's really trying to work on that. He doesn't have a ton of explosiveness off the dribble, which I think will come in time because, again, the kid is 16 and he can still throw down a mean dunk. He's not as consistent of a shooter as maybe you would like, but this kid is gifted. This is a uber talented 2028 prospect. There's a reason he's a 5-star right now. There's a reason the Cats are checking him out. I think that you need to go ahead and have this kid on your radar because he is gifted. And Kentucky, I think, is going to try and stay in this thing as they are currently. Really, 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 really talented player that could be huge for the Wildcats down the line. Kam Mercer, know the name. All right, goodness gracious. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. Follow me on Twitter at Lance Dawe_. Follow the show over on Instagram. That's a Kentucky podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I'll see you all tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And God bless.